Good evening and welcome. Wherever you are right now, I hope you can let the day loosen its grip just a little and give yourself permission to rest. Make yourself comfortable. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench and allow your breathing to slow down in its own natural way. You don't need to do anything perfectly. You only need to be here, listening, while the night takes over the work of quieting the world. Tonight, we'll take a soft journey on a night train through rain, through silent stations, through warm light and familiar sounds, until everything feels steady, simple, and safe. Hash the night train. The train had already decided on its rhythm long before the passenger remembered to listen for it. It carried its own steady logic, a gentle sway, a measured rolling, the calm insistence of wheels meeting rail in a repeating pattern that never demanded attention, only offered it. Outside the window, night pressed close. Autumn rain stitched thin lines across the glass, then gathered into rounded beads that trembled when the carriage rocked. Farther out, beyond the pane, the world was reduced to dim silhouettes and occasional lights that appeared and vanished like quiet thoughts. He sat in the lower berth of a small compartment, shoulders relaxed, hands resting loosely in his lap. His coat lay folded beside him, and his scarf, still holding a trace of cool air from the platform, had been draped over the hook near the door. The compartment smelled faintly of clean linen, old wood varnish, and the soft metallic note of warm heating pipes hidden behind panels. The overhead luggage rack held 2 bags that did not rattle, as if they understood the hour. A dark window reflected the interior, the pale rectangle of the table, the soft edge of the curtain, the muted glow from the nightlight that turned everything into gentle sepia. The light was not bright enough to wake anyone, not dim enough to feel lonely. It simply existed like a promise. In the corridor outside, distant sounds drifted now and then. A careful footstep, the soft click of a sliding door, a brief murmur that never rose into conversation. Somewhere farther down the carriage, a kettle lid made a small metallic tap, and then silence settled again, smooth as fabric. He liked this part best, the moment after departure, when the day had been left behind, and the night had not yet asked anything of him. schedules to check, no messages to answer, only a narrow space that belonged to him for a while, and the train doing what trains do, carrying him without hurry through darkness. He leaned forward and began preparing the bed with the unspoken care of a small ritual. The bedding set waited in a neat bundle, a sheet folded into a rectangle, a pillow wrapped in crisp cotton, a blanket that looked heavy but yielded easily when lifted. The fabric made a quiet sound as he unfolded it, a dry whisper, like leaves turned by a slow wind. The sheet was cool at first touch, then quickly warmed beneath his palms. He smoothed it from the center outward, pressing out invisible creases with patient strokes. The pillowcase had a faint patterned tiny dots, almost like distant stars, barely visible under the nightlight. He tucked the pillow into the corner, and it held its shape, modest and reliable. The blanket came last. It was the sort of blanket that felt both dense and breathable, with a faintly textured weave. When he drew it across the berth, it made a soft weight in the air, then settled. He tucked the edge under the mattress, not too tight, leaving enough slack that he could later pull it up without effort. The train rocked gently as he worked, an unhurried side-to-side motion that made the curtain sway a fraction and made the rain on the window slide in slightly angled paths. The movement was calming, like being held in a slow cradle. He paused, hands resting on the blanket, and listened. The wheels had their own language, a steady clatter when they crossed a seam, then a return to a smoother roll. Sometimes a deeper tone rose, as if the train had entered a longer curve and the metal and distance were speaking to each other. Beneath it all was a low hum, electric, constant, comforting. The corridor offered another layer. A faint draft carried the scent of tea and something slightly sweet, perhaps a pastry someone had unwrapped with care. A door latch clicked, gentle rather than sharp. A voice murmured, then faded, as if it had decided not to disturb the night. He reached for the small table beneath the window. It was plain, functional, and slightly worn, with a few tiny scratches that caught the light when he tilted his head. On it sat his cup holder, metal, sturdy, the kind with a handle that felt cool and smooth in the fingers. It was familiar even if it belonged to the railway, as if generations of hands had held it and passed on the knowledge. This is how you drink tea at night while the world slides by. He opened his bag and took out a small packet of tea, then a spoon, then a napkin folded into a careful square. He moved quietly, not because he feared waking someone. He was alone in this compartment, but because quiet felt appropriate, like speaking in a library or walking in fresh snow. When he stepped into the corridor to fetch hot water, the air changed. It was cooler than inside the compartment, and it carried the mixed, gentle smells of travel. Fabric warmed by bodies, faint soap, metal, and the slight tang of the heater. The corridor lights were spaced out along the ceiling, creating alternating pockets of brightness and shadow. They made the carriage feel longer than it was, like a soft tunnel. He walked toward the samovar area with small, balanced steps, adjusting easily to the train's motion. In the distance, someone shifted behind a door, and a quiet cough appeared and disappeared. He passed the window at the end of the corridor and saw only darkness and rain, and a tiny smear of light somewhere far away, as if a farmhouse had briefly remembered it existed. The samovar was warm to the air around it. He filled his glass carefully, watching the steam rise and vanish. The sound of water was subdued, like a whisper of a stream. He placed the glass into the podstacanic, feeling the metal cradle it, and returned to his compartment with both hands steady, the way you carry something precious when you're half asleep. Back inside, he set the glass on the table. Steam curled upward in thin ribbons. He added the tea, stirred slowly, and listened to the spoon's soft tap against glass. The color deepened from clear to amber, then to a warm brown that looked almost golden under the nightlight. He didn't drink right away. He simply watched the tea settle, the smallest leaves drifting and then resting. The glass warmed his fingertips when he wrapped his hand around it, and the heat traveled into his palm in a way that felt reassuring, like holding a small hearth. Outside the window, a cluster of lights emerged. They were not bright enough to be a city, not scattered enough to be countryside. The train was approaching a small station, the kind that existed for a few practical reasons and not much else. The platform lamps appeared one by one, evenly spaced, their light diffused by rain. The station itself was a low shape, a modest building with dark windows and a single brighter rectangle near the door. The train slowed without drama. The rolling sound became a softer, lower murmur, and the compartment's sway turned slower, heavier. He could feel it in his bones, the way speed changes. He watched raindrops on the glass hesitate, then begin sliding in a different pattern as the motion altered. The station passed at a respectful pace. A sign flashed by white letters on a dark background, but he did not try to read it. He didn't need a name. The station was simply a station, quiet and patient, letting the train drift through without asking for anything. A door opened in the corridor. Someone stepped out, paused, and then walked away. A second later, a soft thump came from a suitcase being shifted. The sounds were distant and muffled, as if the carriage had decided to pad them for the sake of sleeping passengers. Then the train gained speed again, smoothly, like someone easing a blanket back into place. The wheels resumed their steady pattern. The station lights receded and dissolved into the rain, and the darkness outside became deeper, almost velvety. He lifted the glass and took his first sip. The tea was hot, but not scalding. It tasted plain and honest, slightly tannic, with a faint perfume that rose with the steam. The warmth moved down his throat and settled in his chest, a small, friendly weight. He rested his head lightly against the wall beside the berth. The panel was cool through his hair, and it felt solid, dependable. The train's vibration was gentle enough to become part of the background, like the sound of a refrigerator in a quiet kitchen, or distant rain against a roof. The curtain by the window was made of thick fabric, slightly rough under his fingertips. He pulled it partly aside so the night could remain in view. He liked to watch the raindrops. They gathered at the top edge of the window and then made their slow descent, each one choosing a path, sometimes joining another drop, sometimes splitting around invisible dust or a tiny imperfection in the glass. He found himself following one droplet with his eyes. It clung for a moment, swelling as it collected smaller beads, then released and slid downward in a smooth line. It left behind a clear trail that lasted only a second before new rain softened it again. Watching it required no effort. His mind could rest while his eyes stayed gently busy. The nightlight near the door cast a pool of warm illumination over the compartment. It softened corners and made the metal parts hooks, handles, the podstacanic glow without glare. The light fell across the blanket and revealed its texture. Tiny ridges, a woven pattern that looked like small waves frozen in place. He touched the blanket again, not because he needed to adjust it, but because touch anchored him. The fabric was neither too smooth nor too coarse. It had a reassuring resistance to his fingertips, the way good cloth does, present, real, uncomplicated. From far away, the train horn sounded once, low and brief, not alarming, just a polite announcement to the night. After that, only the wheels spoke again, their steady syllables repeating. The seams in the rails created a pattern that was almost musical, a soft double tap at intervals, then a stretch of smooth rolling. He drank another sip of tea and felt his thoughts loosen, becoming less specific. The day's details, faces, tasks, small concerns began to fade, not pushed away, simply drifting off like mist. The compartment was a small island of warmth moving through cool darkness, and that was enough. At some point, the train entered a longer stretch of forest or open field. It was hard to tell. The outside became almost completely black. The window turned into a mirror that showed the interior more clearly. His own calm face, the amber tea, the pale bedding. The reflection made the compartment feel twice as intimate, as if he were traveling alongside a quieter version of himself. He set the glass down carefully. The podstacanic made a soft ring as it met the table. He unfolded the napkin and placed it beneath the glass, a small gesture of order. He appreciated small order at night. It was not strict or demanding, simply calming. In the corridor, footsteps passed, slow, measured, likely a conductor moving from compartment to compartment. A brief pause near his door, then the sound of paper being adjusted in a pocket. The footsteps continued, and the corridor returned to stillness. He unbuttoned his shirt cuffs and loosened the collar. The air in the compartment was comfortably warm, but he liked the feeling of changing into something meant for rest. From his bag, he took a simple sleep shirt, soft with use, and a pair of socks. The fabric was smooth and familiar, worn in the best way, no surprises, no stiffness, just the gentle give of cotton that had been washed many times. He changed without hurry. Each movement was careful, but unself-conscious, like someone who knows there is no audience and nothing to prove. When he folded his day clothes and set them on the small shelf, the compartment looked even calmer, less like a place in transit, and more like a temporary room in a quiet hotel that happened to sway. He sat on the edge of the berth and listened again. The train's motion was constant, but it varied in tiny ways, slightly more sway on a curve, slightly less on straight track. The sound of rain on the window changed too. Sometimes it was a fine, even hiss, like a soft brush across the glass. Sometimes heavier drops struck and slid, making a deeper, more deliberate rhythm. The world outside offered rare lights. A single lamp in the distance, a line of faint orange dots that might have been a road. Occasionally, a cluster of white lights that suggested another station, though far enough away that he could not yet see a platform. He wondered lazily about the people in other compartments. Someone reading under a small light, eyes moving across a page. Someone already asleep, breathing slow and steady. Someone sipping tea as he was, perhaps watching the same rain, feeling the same gentle rocking and thinking, for a moment, that life could be simple. The thought did not need an answer. It simply settled into him like warmth. The train slowed again, a second station. This one felt even quieter. The platform lights were fewer, and the building was smaller, a simple structure with a low roof. There was a bench that looked empty. Rain shone in the light, falling steadily, making the platform gleam. The train rolled through without stopping, or perhaps it paused so briefly that it barely mattered. He watched the lights slide past, the vertical poles bending slightly in the window's perspective. A sign appeared and vanished. A signal lamp glowed red, then disappeared behind the frame. Then the the station was gone, and the night resumed its uninterrupted dark, he finished his tea in small sips. Each one was warmer now, deeper, as if the tea had decided to become more comforting as the hour grew later. When the glass was empty, he held it for a moment anyway, enjoying the leftover heat. Then he stood and carried it into the corridor to set it aside, returning with the small sense of satisfaction that comes from completing a tiny task. Back in the compartment, he turned the nightlight slightly lower. The glow softened further, turning the bedding into a pale landscape of folds and shadows. The curtain remained half open. He liked to keep a connection to the outside, even if the outside was mostly darkness. He lay down on his back, then shifted onto his side. The pillow accepted his head with a quiet, supportive softness. The blanket rose to his chest when he pulled it up, and its weight felt right, not heavy, not light, just steady. The train's movement translated through the mattress in gentle pulses. His breathing slowed. He listened to the corridor again. A door closed softly somewhere. A faint, distant clink of glass. Then nothing. In the window, raindrops continued their slow journeys. He watched them without focusing too hard, letting his eyes soften. The drops merged and separated, making tiny, temporary rivers. The nightlight reflected in the glass as a small, warm oval, like a candle flame protected from wind. His mind drifted into a calm, slightly dreamlike space where images appeared without effort. He imagined the rails stretching ahead, two lines of metal disappearing into the night. He imagined the engine at the front, steady and patient, pulling the sleeping carriages through rain and darkness as if it had been doing it forever. He imagined the stations he could not see, small platforms with wet concrete, silent ticket offices, benches shining with rain, a lone lamp buzzing softly. He imagined them waiting, not lonely, just still, part of a larger rhythm that included trains passing through, and then leaving again, leaving only the sound behind. The wheels made their steady pattern. The seams in the rails came like punctuation. Each time the train crossed one, it was like a gentle reminder. You are moving, but you are safe. Moving, but you do not need to steer. He felt his face relax, the muscles around his eyes softening. He loosened his grip on the blanket and let his hand rest on top of it, palm down. The fabric under his fingers felt slightly warmer now, warmed by his body heat. In the corridor, the conductor passed again, footsteps quieter than before. Perhaps he had learned where the creaky spots were. The footsteps faded, and the carriage returned to its soft hush. He thought of tea again, the simple comfort of it, and the way the glass had warmed his hands. He thought of the podstacanic's weight, how it made the act of drinking feel ceremonial, like a small tradition carried through time. The thought was soothing, not nostalgic, simply appreciative. Outside, a few more lights appeared farther apart now, like stars seen through low clouds. They slid slowly across the window and vanished. Rain continued. The sound of it was faint, cushioned by the glass and the curtain, but present enough to be felt. It blended with the train's hum until it became impossible to separate one from the other. His eyelids grew heavier. He didn't force them closed. He let them droop naturally, opening and closing as if testing the darkness. When they were open, he saw the window and the raindrops. When they were closed, he saw softer things, vague shapes, slow colors, the memory of warm light. The train entered a gentle curve. The sway became slightly more pronounced, like a slow dance step. The blanket shifted a fraction. He adjusted without fully waking, pulling it up again, tucking it lightly under his chin. The movement felt automatic, guided by comfort rather than thought. He felt grateful for the compartment's small details. The way the door fit into its frame without rattling. The way the nightlight didn't flicker. The way the curtain blocked drafts. The way the bedding held warmth without becoming too hot. These were not luxuries, exactly. They were quiet kindnesses built into the world. The next station came like a soft apparition. Lights emerged from the rain, closer this time, brighter. The train slowed, and he could feel the change through the mattress, as if the carriage had taken a deeper breath. The platform moved past the window, wet and shining. A person stood under a lamp, motionless, holding a bag, their face not visible. The train stopped. It wasn't a harsh stop. It was smooth, controlled, like a hand setting down a cup. For a moment, the wheel's sound faded, and the carriage was quieter. In the corridor, a door opened. A suitcase wheel rolled softly. A muffled voice said something brief and low. He listened without curiosity, just as part of the night's texture. The corridor sounds were gentle, respectful. The station outside stayed calm, rain falling steadily, light pooling on the ground. Then the train started again. The wheels returned, the hum rose, the familiar sway resumed. The station lights slid away, fading into darkness as if the world had turned its head. He exhaled slowly. The movement of the train felt like reassurance. It didn't matter where exactly the train was going at this precise moment. It mattered only that it was going steadily, smoothly, carrying him and everyone else along a safe line through the night. He was half asleep now, thoughts turning soft at the edges. He caught fragments, a memory of a warm kitchen, the scent of rain on leaves, the feeling of clean sheets, the sound of a kettle. None of it demanded attention. Each fragment floated by and drifted away. His hand slid under the blanket, finding a comfortable place near his chest. His shoulders sank deeper into the mattress. The pillow cradled his head. The compartment's air felt even, neither dry nor damp, warmed by the heater's quiet work. A small rattle sounded briefly, perhaps the glass on the table settling after a curve, then silence again. He appreciated how the train's noises were never sudden. Even the occasional clink was softened by distance and fabric, and the general agreement of night to be gentle. Outside, the rain continued its patient work. Drops gathered, slid, merged, and vanished. The window became a slow-moving canvas. The few lights that appeared were blurred and softened, as if the rain insisted on turning everything into watercolor. He stopped trying to follow individual drops. He let the whole view become a gentle blur. His eyes closed longer each time they closed, until opening them felt unnecessary. The wheels repeated their calm message. The train rocked, steady as breathing. The corridor stayed quiet. Somewhere in the carriage, someone turned over in their sleep. A faint rustle of fabric, then stillness. He drifted farther down into rest, and the world became simpler: warmth, weight, motion, sound. The train carried him through stations he did not see, through fields and forests and small sleeping towns. The night held everything in soft hands, and as the rain traced its slow lines on the glass, and as the lights appeared and faded, the passenger in the compartment let sleep arrive the way it likes to arrive, gradually, gently, without announcement, until the rocking of the train and the steady sound of the wheels became part of his dreams. And then even the dreams quieted, and there was only rest.